Well, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Here we are. We're rolling now. All right, we are in the 12th week of What is a Man? We're looking at, of course, Jacob. We're looking at what I'm calling snapshots out of his life and putting it together and completing this series before we move on to the next. So we're kind of midlife with Jacob. And as you can see here, we're looking at this section. I know you can't read it, but he has crossed over from the first half of life. We talked about ascent, and then into this center section of life that we call I don't have it on here, but I call it Shades of Gray, and it's when you guys, all of us probably in this room are very much aware of life depicting as this very jagged up and down period of time as life begins to push in and responsibilities and so forth. And so, last week we introduced this section, this crossover and life pushing in, and we talked about, what about this line? What is this line all about? And what the line is all about is that Jacob has found himself between two forces, and those two forces are his capacity to embrace his limits. There comes a time in a man's life where he starts to realize he's not going to be he's not going to play professional football or get a letter from the Rockies to go be a relief pitcher. And I'm being facetious here, but there comes a time when a man realizes that he has real limitations, and he wakes up to that truth. And what could be a devastating truth can actually be a releasing into a whole nother level of life. Well, that's one side of it, but then the other side of it is we still have this desire to want to maintain control. And what this does, the way this plays out, as we see in Jacob's life within the text that we'll be looking at, as it prompts fear. We don't know what to do with this tension, and that's what creates this jaggedy line where we want to believe, but releasing control, we want to believe that God can transcend our limits, but releasing control is difficult. So that's where I'm depicting Jacob is in his life currently, and that we introduced that last week. Now today, what I'd like to do is had somebody, maybe a couple guys, turn to Genesis 32. And we're going to read verses 6 through 23. That is, we're going to continue this what I'm calling snapshot group number 5, and we're going to look at the context here. Is Jacob has reached out to his brother Esau, and because he wants to make amends, he's coming home with his family. And all that he's acquired over this much of his lifetime, he's returning home, and there's this big skeleton in the closet with his brother. How he treated his brother when they were younger, and so he sends out this messenger, and he hears back that Esau is coming with 400 men, and we're going to read about his response to that. So if we could read that text, somebody begin reading in chapter 32 and verse 6.
When the messengers returned to Jacob, they said, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is coming to meet you, and 400 men are with him." In great fear and distress, Jacob divided the people who were with him into two groups, and the flocks and the herds and camels as well. He thought, if Esau comes and attacks one group, the group that is left may escape. Then Jacob prayed, "O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you who said to me, 'Go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper.' I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become 2 camps.
Interesting.
Verse 11.
Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children. But you said, I will surely do you good, and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. So he stayed there that night, and from what he had with him, he took a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. Then he handed over to his servants every drove by itself, and said to his servants, pass on ahead of me and put a space between drove and drove. He instructed the first, when Esau my brother meets you and asks you, to whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you? Then you shall say, they belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present sent to my lord Esau, and moreover he is behind us. He likewise instructed the second and the third, and all who followed the droves. You shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him, and you shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us. For he thought, I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me, and afterward I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. The same night he arose and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream everything else that he had.
Okay, good. Thank you, guys. So Jacob sends the messengers out. The news comes, your brother's coming with 400 men, and his response is, yeah. Now, of course, that's the first thing. Why do you think this is kind of a loaded question. Why do you think his response was negative instead of positive? It could very well have been a positive response. Why is that?
Because of what happened between he and
Yeah.
his brother before he left.
It's the baggage. It's the baggage of the past that's informing his response now in life. Now, if he had cleared that baggage of the past, if they had had a prior time to talk, then the news of his brother coming would be, wow, let's prepare a party, my brother is coming. But it's because of the baggage of the past that's informing how he casts this reality or this occasion. It's not based on reality because we know the rest of the story. His brother is coming to be with him, just to be with him. His brother has reconciled the past, but Jacob has not. So that's why. I divided the section into three parts, 3 actions of Jacob. And once he is operating in out of a fear context, he is terrified. And that terrified feeling that he has is prompting him to do three actions. Number 1 is he is attempting to protect. I would call this minimizing loss. He divides his whole entourage, family members, and all of his belongings into 2 parts and separates them so that if Esau attacks here, then this group will have opportunity for escape, and if Esau attacks here, then this half of his resources, family, will be able to escape. So it's minimizing loss. It's an act of protection. He's trying to protect to the best of his ability what he has, minimize his loss. The second piece, 9 through 12, is he is now seeking the Lord. And what is the nature of his prayer?
Help,
Yeah, help. Based on what?
based on his fear of what he thinks Esau is going to do to him.
True. That I think probably if that's what's prompting the prayer right now. But where does he go in his prayer with God?
Promises that have been given.
Yeah, the promises. Now, God, don't you remember? And you know, we can all relate. There is no fault here. This is natural. This is, if I were in his sandals, I would be doing the same thing. You know, God, don't you remember? They did it and seeking out of terror and fear. But we can't fault this man for this. We would be right there with him on our knees with seeking God. So there is a seeking God piece. There is a action to protect. And then the third piece is he's trying to fix it. Fix it meaning he strategizes. Jacob is a really smart guy. And he creates this very sophisticated gifting process where he puts these animals together and sends them out, something of value, and then he puts distance in between gift number 1 and gift number 2, and he instructs very strategically how to inform Esau of why and how this is happening. And he does this, you know, he sets they call them droves, these gifts, gift 1. And then Esau has a time to absorb that. And then gift number 2, and wow. And then gift number 3 and gift number 4 and so forth. And he's hoping to, as the text says, I hope to appease my brother, because he's working out of this framework. Okay, so there are the three sections there. And I'd like to tie this into where we talked about the box. Remember the box. And the box is Jacob, you know, we're all in this box. This box is called our human experience, what is known, what we know at a given time. And we have opportunities for growth, which is presenting itself right now in Jacob's life. There's an opportunity. And he's cast it a certain way, so as he moves to this whole area, this fear zone, what he's doing is he's clamping out of fear. He is trying to control the situation. And then he's got rationalizations, he's got these strategies in his mind of how this will appease his brother. He's trying to minimize loss. God is in the picture, he's seeking God, but he's also taking his own action and using his own resources to try to help God along. You know, he's not turning it 100% over yet. He's rationalizing, and then of course he's doing what he can, is what this is, and this is what we talked about. This box. So first of all, in this box, the way I see it is that the text is really clear. There are 3 mentions that it is night. And I'd like to suggest that Jacob is in night. He's not only in night in a true sense, but he's also in a night spiritually. He's in a dark time. This is crisis for him. And we're seeing his crisis played out in just a couple of chapters. But guys, in our experience, this night can go on for a long period of time. You know, we're seeing a process almost like time lapse here, but in our experience, guys, this can go on for quite some time. It is night, and in this night there is aloneness, there is darkness, there is fear, there is strategizing. Guys, night can be a very tough time. And Jacob is experiencing. And that's why I've got this depicted as this dark screening over the box, because he is in fear. It's a fear context, and it is night. He takes 3 actions within this box, within this time, and it loosely follows this same process that I have back behind the screening. He is here to protect, he is seeking, and he is fixed. Everyone here in this room is a man of faith. And guys, as a man of faith, if we're honest, we seek God. It's mixed, but yet we got to do what we got to do what we can do to control it. And so there is this tension that you and I as men we work with, and we have experience with protecting, seeking, and fixing. And this is not bad. This is our experience, gentlemen, is that we tend to respond no different than Jacob in a crisis situation like this. Last weekend I got to go to visit my daughter, and my brother and I went down to see her, and she lives down by Lake City, and Dave and Bob know my daughter, and had a really nice time. She was working, so we had to just go out and fish all day. You know, we fished for 2 days on what's called Big Blue Creek, and it's a no-name creek above Lake City, and just had a marvelous time. I mean, it's really cool when you go fishing and you just lose count. And a small little stream, brook trout, and my brother's teaching me how to fly fish, and I'm really enjoying that. And in a context like that, you really get to learn a lot about fishing with the flies and so forth in this tight little area. But we were successful, and as I was sitting there fishing, just enjoying this beautiful setting, and catching lots of fish. I could think you could throw a piece of tree bark in there, and they were so hungry, it'd take about anything. And but I got to thinking about, and I was preparing for this teaching today, and I was thinking about being played out. And because when you get a fish on, they always respond a little bit different. And some of them take off, and you guys are probably have enough experience with fishing, is that there's a sense of you got to be aware, and you just can't just throw it in, bring it in, because it could break a line, and there's several things that go on. Now, let me stop for a minute. I don't think God is the great fly fisherman in the sky, and he throws bait out to us, and he likes to see us wiggle on the end of the line. That is not the vision of God that I have. However, if we look at it from the fish perspective, what Jacob is going through right now is he's hooked. He's in a situation that is outside of his control, just like the brook trout on the end of the line. And he's down there under the water, and he is in his environment doing what he can do, doing what he knows how to do to get free. He's in a context where he knows God, so part of that story is his seeking of God. But yet he is resisting, and he's moving, and he's trying to get free. And as now on the fisher side, I know that as the fisherman, I have no intent to harm that fish. I'm there for sport and having fun. Unlike God, God does not sport with us. But yet, on the other hand, I don't seek at all to harm the fish. In fact, I want to let the fish go. But the fish has to go through this process of being caught before he can be set free once again. And the more that the fish struggles, the goal of it is to tire the fish out, to bring it in a safe way, so he's not beating around on the rocks and on the bank, and to be able to reach down and grab the fish, and then remove the hip, or the hip, that was a lip, move the hook from his lip, and to release the fish as quickly as possible. Because when that fish is outside of his environment, he is struggling, he's suffocating, and that fish has to be released back in. And so the fisherman wants to do that as quickly as possible. Now, I was playing around with this analogy while I was fishing, and I go, that's exactly where Jacob is from the fish's perspective, is that he's hooked and he's struggling and he's trying to figure it out. And it's that can be termed as being played out, being played out. And the goal of it is right now, this is very much where he is. He's in this being played out mode inside the box. He's caught inside this box. As time goes on, as Jacob begins to weaken, the law of physics takes over. You can only go and resist for so long that now he gets weaker. See how it's starting to dim. But there's something going on over here. It's this residing inner hope that he has, this greater pull that God has put within Jacob and with every man in this room as part of his created order. That there's this hope that begins as we physically weaken our resources. There's something that starts to emerge deep within our being, is the idea. Now, we play it out even further, and it weakened. We're out there struggling, but we're starting to weaken. But yet, as we start to weaken, it allows what's inward to emerge, and that the greater pull, the hope that we have. And then, here, and one more, and then finally we're played out. And we resist, we succumb. As Jesus succumbed to death on the cross, he succumbs. And he says, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. That would be that picture right there. So, I'd like to ask you guys, we got 10 minutes or 12 minutes, and I've laid out a scenario of where Jacob is. I've tried to give you an analogy, at least how I see it from my head. The analogy has a lot of holes in it, but I'd like you to think about being that fish on the end of the line and struggling, trying to set free, doing it your way. And the whole goal is the loving God who is there allowing this to happen so that he can set you free, is the idea. As Jacob is being played out, what thoughts do you think are running through his mind? I'd like you to start with Jacob. And of course, what you're going to draw to is your own experience. As you have had experiences of being played out. What is going through his mind? What is he feeling at this time? And again, you'll have opportunity to draw on your own experience as you think about Jacob. As he's sitting out there and he's doing all this strategy, and it's late in the night and he's exhausted and he's got the fear of his brother coming, and he's got this whole strategy and design. It's just exhausting. What's he feeling, and what motivates him to keep going? Why doesn't he just end it all in despair? But there's something driving him to keep going. So we'll circle up around the table. I'll join this group right here, and then we'll get back together one time to summarize.